smelling good, can I tell?
Just go, man, just go.
Ready, Rock?
Yeah, action, go ahead.
What's up, family? My name is Brother Murray.
Jesus Christ.
We'd like to welcome everyone to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. We meet here every other Wednesday in honor of William Mackey, El-Haj Malik Shabazz, Amos Wilson, Louis Ray Rivera, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Gil Noble, Professor Simmons, Attorney Alton Maddox, Miss Leola, Ivan Van Sertima, and all the historians who gave up fame and fortune to provide information to the global black community. They didn't have to go that route. They sacrificed. El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz, Professor George Simmons. So we honor these people. Miss Leola, who worked in Teaneck, New Jersey, had an old car. And she would drive that car from Madison, from Teaneck, all the way to the United African Movement, because she believed in bringing people together. So we always want to keep the information and the history together. So Brother Rajiv is going to bring the camera over to the Amos collection in honor of Amos Wilson and Brother Sababu and African World Info Systems. We have Blueprint for Black Power, The Psychology of Self-Hatred and Self-Defeat toward a Reclamation of the African Mind, Black-Owned Black Violence, The Psychodynamic of Black Self-Annihilation in Service of White Domination. Everybody got an opinion on black-owned black violence and why we doing this and doing that, and they can't figure it out. Every talking head, every big city crappy mayor is running their mouth. Nobody mentions Amos Wilson. The developmental psychology of the black child, awakening the natural genius of black children, and you hear a lot of stuff about the New World Order. Amos wrote this book decades ago, African-Centered Consciousness versus the New World Order. Issues of manhood in black and white, and you hear that all over the place. We have some issues, but nobody has ever tampered with Amos' classic Issues of Manhood in Black and White. An inclusive look in masculinity and societal definition of the African mind. Amos did one hell of a job. You hear anybody talk about Amos Wilson in that book? Hell no. The falsification of African consciousness, falsification. In honor of Louis Ray Rivera, who came here after Professor Mackey left us, and he would come down here and speak for hours. And when he finished, we would walk him home, and he would talk for another hour and a half. We have this in honor of Louis Ray Rivera, Jazz in Jail. At British Jamaica confronted the color crisis of the African diaspora. Earl Ponder revealing the unspeakable Bible verses, the truth about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And S.K. Damiano Kuhn, Distorted Truth, the Bastardization of African Cosmology. So we have these books in honor of African World Info Systems. We got a few more publications over here. Randy Short, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Big Harold, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Big Harold, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Big Harold, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Big Harold, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Big Harold, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Big Harold, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Big Harold, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Big Harold, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Big Harold, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Big Harold, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Big Harold, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. In honor of Big Harold, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. Palestine. The lost Jews, last of the Ethiopian Colossians, they had all this stuff going on about Hebrews and Negroes and Hebrews, so I found this book. Theodore Allen, The Invention of the White Race. In honor of the great one, Dr. Ben, black man of renown and his family. Not too many computers around this time when Doc was doing this book. So we have that. The Unspoken Truth About Racial Divide, White Rage, Carol Alexander. In my opinion, the only one who cared about the people of Georgia, Cynthia McKinney, when China sneezes from the coronavirus lockdown to the global political economic crisis. Io Kamati, The Irritated Genie. Jews are the problem. World War III, COVID-19, media censorship, and food shortages. This book is unbelievable. The Genie did an excellent job. Edward Down, who used to be an analyst for BlackRock. Causes unknown. The epidemic of sudden death in 2021, 2022, 2023, and going into 2024. It's still happening, and nobody want to connect it. Dr. Scott Whitaker, out of Decatur, Georgia, Medicine. The causes and solutions to disease, malnutrition, and the medical sins that are killing the world. Dr. Scott. Charles Hamilton Houston and the struggle for civil rights. We got a lot of black elected officials who's laughing all the way to the brink, and they're called civil rights. They're civil rights leaders all over the place. Charles Hamilton Houston doesn't fall in that category. And you got a lot of people trying to claim civil rights and they pay no goddamn dues. The truth about COVID-19, Joseph McCall and Ronald Cummings, and presidential candidate Robert Kennedy, the real Anthony Fauci. Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and the global war on democracy. Get these books and read them, and it'll make your head spin. But we also have 2 DVDs from our great scholar and friend, Dr. Arthur Lewis. You have to get in touch with me to get these. And he gave us this information a long time ago. So I'm going to name a couple of events. First of all, for the people that came, our live audience, give yourself a great big hand. And for our Zoom audience, our speaker was a little late, but thank you for staying on. And lets us know that you're committed to the Mackey's group. I got some events. Thorough Black Talk. Ted, Keisha, Ashe, Brother Black, and Sister Marcia. That's Thursdays at 8 o'clock on Facebook Live. Saturday, our Philadelphia Connection. Blog Talk Radio with Sister Empress Chi. Every Saturday at 10:30. The number is 1-319-527-6189. That comes on Saturday at 10:30. And Sister Empress and the Million Women's March, Brother the Movement, them, they be 10 lines up to 1 o'clock in the morning. Every Monday at 10 o'clock a.m. Ugugu Sankofa Revolutionary Radio with Brother Anthony Muhammad, WSYP 95.1 FM, Irritated Genie, he goes into that book and all the other stuff this brother's doing down in D.C., that's at 10 o'clock, and you can call in and get in on the conversation. Our Baltimore family with Brother Darren Muhammad, State of the City. Saturday on TuneIn Radio, Instagram, under Darren Muhammad, State of the City, Baltimore, and he will be on tomorrow on Facebook Live, on Instagram. Brother Darren Muhammad and our Baltimore connection, Saturday, 1590 AM, Glen Burnie Radio. Every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, Dr. Aline, Your Immunity Project. And at 7 p.m. also on Califani Radio. He did an excellent program yesterday, and Dr. Aline has given us some powerful information. Every Friday, African Echoes and our Newark, New Jersey connection with Brother Trust Graham, Brother Danny and Brother True. They're doing the psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat for the reclamation of the African mind. That lecture series is every Friday at 8 o'clock. And Brother Danny will come on and you can get the information and he can email you and you can tune in to African Echoes. Also, the Know Thyself study group out of Asbury Park. Those history men out of there with Trust Graham. They're doing the destruction of black civilization with Chancellor Williams and Brother True and the cats out at Asbury Park. They're doing it up and they send the link. That's at 1:30. Also, the Simotap community. Dr. James McIntosh and Sister Richard Dean Theodore and Betty Dobson every Wednesday, WBAI 99.5 FM. That program comes on at 2 o'clock and Dr. McIntosh is doing an excellent job. And anything you want to know about the Simotap organization and what they're doing, you can go into Simotap and they will tell you what's going on. The Community Cop program, Manhattan Neighborhood Network comes on every Tuesday at 5 with Mike Graves, Mel O'Leary, Julian Harper, and you can view all the Community Cop past programs and do the study yourself. Look it up and go over it. All the lectures from the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club is on YouTube under BK William Mackey Jr. You could go into all the lectures that we put up and do an investigation. If you don't believe what the speaker's talking about, that's what it's for. So those events we have for the community and the people to do their research. So now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, our good friend and co-founder of the Mackey's Group, he's been here for us. He's running a little late today. Without further ado, I want everybody to give a big hand. So Brother Mike Graves will talk about Brother Alton, who left us too soon. Ladies and gentlemen, give our keynote speaker a great big hand. Brother Mike Graves. Thank you, Raji.
Say I am.
I am.
Because we are.
Because we are.
I am.
I am.
Because we are.
Because we are.
This is mine?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I want to be consistent with what Ray said, a history of Alton Maddox. I would not, even if I was arrogant, I would not call it the history of Alton Maddox. It's a history. Because we all who met him and know him and maybe traveled with him have some of that history. And some of the history that you know might be different And I can learn from the history you know, and maybe you can learn from what I know. So it's a history, not the definitive history. As we well know, Alton Maddox was the chair of the United African Movement. It goes way back to 1987. Certainly he was a well-polished lawyer long before that, but just talking about his UN history. It starts in 87. I think, if memory serves me, I think the first initial meeting was organized around what had happened to Tawana Brawley. That's what sparked it, and certainly it was organized in the spirit of Marcus Messiah Garvey. And this is why every meeting ended with the words of Garvey. And it's almost like yesterday, you know, we can remember it literally, word for word. Anybody that went to the slave theater back in those days, and even though the initial meeting was other places like that, church over there on Perkins, I forgot the name of the church, some Baptist, something Baptist. Not Bethany, not Bethany.
What's Baptist Church? Friendship Baptist Church.
Friendship. That's correct. It's Friendship. Friendship Baptist Church. And then it eventually, obviously, landed at the Slave Theater, and it was nothing short of magical to be there on Bedford and Fulton, even before you entered the theater. The amazing people you would see and meet outside, and the merchants, every kind of merchant under the sun, jewelry, clothing, food, cultural attire, cultural things, was all there, health products, all sorts of things was outside. You could do your shopping outside, then go inside and get fed by some scholar, whatever the discipline they might be exercising that night. You never really had to know who was speaking, because it was always somebody good. Actually, it was always somebody excellent. And so it was really, really fantastic to be there. I like to use the term, it was magical to be there. It was just, I don't know if we'll ever see that again. I hope we do in our lifetime, but it was magical and electric. It's sort of like when you read about the Garvey meetings, when you read about Garvey, and you read about the type of meetings that he had, how electrifying it was, and certainly in its own way, United African Movement was similar. Now, from the outset, I agonized over what I would say about Brother Alton, Attorney Maddox to most of you, but to me, he was Brother Alton. And I said it, since I had told Ray earlier, it would be a sort of brief history of Alton Maddox. I said, okay, and I struggled for days and days and couldn't work out what exactly I was going to say. And until about, truth be told, 3:30 this afternoon, I finally put pen to paper. Before it just, nothing was coming out. I was, an idea would come and go. And finally I said, let me just scribble down something and it'll all work itself out. So to tell you the basic things that some of us might know now, Alton was born July 21st, 1945. Might be a surprise to some people that he was actually born in Inkster, Michigan. Inkster, Michigan. I know most people think he was born in Georgia. He was raised in Georgia. He was born actually in Michigan. and his mother decided to take him back to Georgia because Michigan, like most states at that time, especially in the Midwest and other places, did not educate black folks through in high school education through the 12th grade. Most of the time, in many states in those years, you went to about the 8th grade, and then that was about it. And even less in some southern states, because if your parents were sharecroppers or what have you, you tended to work in the field. So education wasn't the priority that it is now. And I would say that in that sense, Alton's parents understood that the mother, particularly, he always said his mother, said, you're not going to stop at the 8th grade, so I'm getting you out of here, I'm taking you back to Georgia, where you will be taught by people that look like us. So by the time, I think he was about 2 years old, and I think that was around the time where she decided to take Alton back to Georgia, to where it all began. And he ended up in Newnan, and in Newnan, by the time Alton was 2nd or 3rd grade, he was already reading all the daily newspapers and what have you, and it was ahead of children his own age because his mother was a teacher. So, and at one time was his teacher in the public school that he was in. So, there did come a time where Alton started doing some active things, as some of us that start early, many of us, it might take an event to get people started, but Alton in particular started at an early age and had a certain level of racial consciousness about himself, even in those early years. But as time would have it, when it was time to graduate from high school, he went to Howard, which is sort of like the Ivy League of black colleges at that time. Went to Howard, graduated, and went to Boston College for law school. Now, I would be skipping it, and I'll go back to let you know, because I guess I'll tell you some things that you probably would get, you just can't get it from anywhere. Alton Maddox told me that he went to the University of Georgia, which was rare back then for lawyers to go to the University of Georgia. He went there, I think he had 2 other classmates who were black in the law school. And you got to remember, if you kind of familiar with SEC history, or there was hardly any blacks in the SEC. I know now when you look at University of Georgia, you see one of the greatest football programs you've ever witnessed, but we talk about long before Herschel Walker and all these other brothers started going there. It was a rare sight to see a black person in these Southeast Conference university. So in any event, Alton went there, and the other 2 black men who were in the law school stayed as far away from Alton as they could, because he wanted to be around them and comment on things that was going on. And once they heard all that black stuff coming from Alton, they knew to stay as far away from him as they could, which they did. They stayed away from him because, that followed him his whole life. If you know Alton, if you wasn't with it, you stayed as far away from Alton as you could. That followed him his entire life. And certainly certain things that I'll say tonight, you'll understand why I'm saying that basically following his whole life. So when during that first semester of school in the law school, the way he would challenge the professors on things that they were saying and the references to about black people, you know, that they were saying in the class, they got challenged by all. Now, if you were in law school back then, you did not challenge your professors. You knew that your time was limited if you were to do that. Well, Alton did. So when he got wind of they were going to throw him out, he left. Now, he had two brothers, and this is things that, you know, Alton has shared with me over the years, just being in close contact with them. There was two brothers that were in corporate America. They were on a level where they could make moves. You know, sort of like, what's the brother who ran Citibank and quite a few other Fortune 500 companies? What's his name? His name is on the tip of my tongue. But they were kind of like that. They were up there in corporate America. And when he told them...
Ken Chenault?
Who?
Ken Chenault?
No, not
Joseph Jett?
No. No, if you say his name, I'll know it. His name is on the tip of my tongue. And so anyway, when he found that out that they were going to throw him out of law school, he discussed it with them, and they in turn made a phone call. I mean, you know, very few brothers can do that. There's something that white people do, you know. They can pick up a phone and you in another law school just like that. And so these brothers were able to do it and did it for Alton. They picked up the phone and told him to report to Boston College, and he could start there. So he went there and was successful, were able to get his law degree, and he didn't have to go through what he would have gone through, because he wouldn't have made it at the University of Georgia. The Alton Maddox we know would not have made it, because you know, you had to play a role there, you had to acquiesce in those times, and I dare say even now, you probably would have to acquiesce a lot to get your degree, because the focus is on getting that law degree. Then you can do whatever you're going to do for your people, or you can make money, which most people that go to law school for money. They do not go to fight the white power structure. They go there to make money. And, you know, Charles Hamilton Houston is one of those few lawyers, as Ray pointed to his book, Groundwork. Charles Hamilton Houston is one of those few lawyers who went to school to make a difference. You know, and if you study Charles Hamilton Houston, you know, who might be considered the best lawyer ever, with the groundbreaking things that he did, he might have been the best ever. Followed closely by Alton. But I'd say Charles Hamilton Houston, especially at that time where his life was on the line with the things he was doing. And not only did he become the best lawyer at that time, but he developed a team of lawyers. And out of that team, obviously we know Thurgood Marshall was on that team. He developed a whole battery of lawyers. And the leader out of that group became Thurgood Marshall, of legendary civil rights fame. So Alton was on the move. Alton became an attorney. His wife had several degrees, Sister Leola, and before I go further, I want to acknowledge so many people we lost before I get into Alton's history. You know, we lost so many soldiers that fell over the last few years who really did a great work, and their names are hardly ever mentioned. But I scribbled down a few this afternoon, and they should be mentioned. I wrote down out of memory, I scribbled down a few names. Nurse Fanny Clark. She was irreplaceable with the things that she did there. Nurse Fanny Clark, Sister Captain Carol, I forgot Carol's name, last name. Just second. No, not Carol Taylor. Her name is on the tip of my tongue. She used to always run one of the buses when we would go places. When we would sell tables, tickets for tables and stuff, she'd always sell more tickets than anybody. Sister Carol, Judy McNeil, of course it goes without saying, Sister Leola Maddox, all legendary in their work. James Anthony, Brother Gittins, I don't know if y'all remember Gittins. Real good brother. James Bryson, James Padmore, incredible brother that did so much, had so much. Padno, I said Padmore, Padno, I'm sorry. Padno, real good brother. Did a lot of good things. And last but not least, Brother Harold Wilson, who was like family. He was just that good, excellent brother. Always did whatever he could do, and used to come to Mackey's before he made his transition. Would even come down here, you know, when health committee would come in. Would go with us to see Trust, who he loved and admired. We always had a good time. As Brother Harold, real good brother. He was a resident historian and scholar for UNM. Some would say me, but it was always Harold. You know, any of us wanted to know something, you asked Harold. And Harold would give you the skinny on what was going on, or he would get back to you and get you that information. Harold was a jack of all trades and mastered quite a few, but he knew a little bit about everything. Harold, if you ever saw his collection of books, you know, he always had a book. Harold always had a book. He was always reading and studying. When we would go on trips, if we were somewhere, he'd be sitting in the lobby with a book all the time. So he was just that kind of brother. So it wasn't just Alton, it wasn't just Leola. They had real good support. And I'm just mentioning the people that passed, you know, certainly there were others, obviously Sister Keisha, and others who did great work, you know, whether up in the camp or weekly at the UNU sessions. We always had good people and played some key roles in all the things that we did. Now,
and that black person in the bakery was Reggie Lewis. Is that what you?
no, but no, he's a billionaire, but not Reggie Lewis. It was his name is he has a beard. I'm looking at his face now. It'll come back. But you know, I'm just saying, it was that kind of brother that was able to pick up a phone and get Alton into a law school. Alton didn't have any alternative because he always wanted to go to the University of Georgia. So when that wasn't working out, they was gonna definitely drop the hammer on him. This brother just picked up the phone and told him to go to Boston. You know, Boston College Law School is already accepted. He was good. So that's how he got there. So in any event, we can go through just a few cases just to bring people in that might not know, maybe people through the Zoom audience, some of the cases that Alton was involved in. Some of them were highly charged, racially, high profile. And then, of course, he did the daily things like helping people stay in their apartments, keeping people from losing their houses. He would do all those things, but the high profile things are the things that probably the media follow, the people follow. He was a guy that you could get counsel from, where some lawyers, you would have to pay them. You didn't have to pay all of them to get some information. I'll say from the outset, and this brother, I forgot this brother's name, but when people always ask, why Alton Maddox did not put clients on the stand to speak, there was a reason for it. Alton would not, to those who might not know, Alton did not, for the most part, allow his clients to testify in court. They wouldn't testify. And you might ask naturally, well, why would Alton do that? Well, Alton, it didn't take him long, and this was early on in his legal career. He had a case in Staten Island where this young brother allegedly had killed someone, allegedly. And they wanted him real bad. The police actually had an in for it because he allegedly killed somebody's mother. I forgot what the situation was, but I think he killed a white woman. And they wanted him bad, but they felt that this was so solid that they didn't care who it was that was going to defend his brother. They knew this guy's guilty and he's going to do time. He's going to be convicted. Well, in no time, Alton, who was early on, at that time, Alton's office was in the back of his trunk, his car trunk, all of his paperwork, everything. He didn't have an office at that time, and he was new on the scene in middle 70s, like 76, 77. So so what he did was he let the guy on the stand because he was beating back a lot of the people who was testifying against him. He put up a good struggle, and the prosecutor started getting nervous. The prosecutor from Staten Island got real nervous and said, man, he didn't expect Alton to put up a fight like that. So Alton is putting up such a great fight for this young brother that they got real nervous. So they called Alton into the office. They said, you got to come in the back room. We got to talk to you. Alton went in the back room with him. He didn't know what it was about. And they basically told him, they said, look, man, we need this guy. We got to put this guy away. And Alton's like, yeah, man. And they were like, look, you giving us a hard fight. And Alton was like, yeah, man. And they told him, this is not the way it goes. You know, you can't fight like this. We got him. We know he did it. And he knows he did it. And you probably know he did it. So why are you doing what you're doing? Alton Maddox said, I'm doing my job. We're going to fight. And they were upset and calls were being made. You know, who's this attorney? Who's this guy that's fighting like this? They said, and the guy ain't paying him. He's getting that regular amount of money you get from when you do
Pro bono.
No, it wasn't pro bono. You get that set amount when the court pays your bills. when you're indigent. And so it was low scale, you know, it was next to nothing. It wasn't worth Alton's while to really do the case. Well, Alton was just about there where he needed to be. And he said, you know what? I'm going to put him on the stand. And when I put him on the stand, we're going to win that. Because it was close. You know, it was real close. Alton said, I'm going to put him on the stand. He put the young kid on the stand. And when he put him there, the prosecutor started grilling him. And the prosecutor started telling him, you did this, you did that. You ain't no good. You did this, you know you did it. And the guy was holding firm for a while, holding his, you know, his composure. And then he said to the kid, you ain't got no damn heart. You ain't got no heart. You nothing. He said, you ain't got no heart. The kid didn't understand what the lawyer was saying. See, the lawyer wasn't saying, you don't have any heart. The lawyer basically was saying, you don't have compassion. You don't have feelings. It was cold and callous. You killing that white woman. But the kid took it as, you challenging me like, you know, you want to do something? You know, because he's saying, you ain't got no heart. You know this? So the kid jumped over the table and knuckled up and started whipping the lawyer's butt. So Alton knew he lost the case. This is early on in Alton's career. Alton was like, man, why'd you do that? And so the kid said to him, he told me I don't have any heart. No, I'll hook off on him in a minute. Alton asked the attorney later. He went to the guy later and said, look, why'd you do that? The attorney said, look, I knew that he didn't have any feelings. And Alton realized he wasn't challenging the kid like, yo, you want to do something? You want to do something? He wasn't saying that, but the kid interpreted it that way. That's why Alton developed that system. Nobody's talking. I'm going to do all the talking. And anybody that come at us, I'm going to take care of that. You just sit right there and let me do what I do. And so when Alton lost that case, because they had him at the rights, it was supposed to be an easy case. This went on for a while only because Alton was just so aggressive with it. So that what ultimately happened, the kid was convicted, and Alton said from then on, my clients are not going to testify. I'll get from them what I need. And Alton would even ask some clients, look, I don't want to know whether you did it or not. This is what I need from you, X, Y, and Z, and you just sit there.
Absolutely.
And that's the way he did it. So when people say, well, why did Alton do that? That's why. That first initial case that he had, and the kid took it as this was a personal challenge, and the kid was like, I'm up for that. You know, I'm up for that. If you want to challenge me, we can do something. And so from then on, Alton did all the talking, and you'll see in some other cases how that always worked for him. But in this particular case, it didn't.
It's ignorance, immaturity, and emotion out.
Mm-hmm. So Alton out of that developed that philosophy that our people do not know legalese, as he called it. Legalese and military science. And if you saw Alton in a courtroom, you knew that he was fighting a military battle and he was applying science, history and science, while he was fighting. So Alton did not, to make a long story short, he did not allow his clients to testify. He did all that, and that's just the way it was. Now, Anybody remember Willie Boston?
Yeah.
That's one of the earliest cases, and certainly Willie Boston was one of the youngest people to be charged as an adult for murder. Alton defended him. Well, nobody else would touch him. So Alton took on that case, and actually the court officers tried to get at Willie Boston. They wanted to put some hurt on him. And Alton stopped them and got into it with them. And they brought Alton up on charges to try to take his license. They brought him up on obstruction of justice charges. And he was able to beat it. He actually got charged. He was arrested and charged with that, and was able to win, which preserved his license at that time. So, throughout Alton's entire legal career, it always will come up this question about his license. Always. So, he never had the luxury of just defending client after client. His license was always hanging in the balance because he didn't do what other lawyers do. Oftentimes, lawyers will put up a good fight for a little while and make it look good, but when they call you in that back room and say, look, man, X, Y, and Z, you go along with the program. I've seen it too many times. And so it's not like Alton is the only lawyer willing to fight. Some of them start out, they're willing, but after a while, they're going to give you up because they're interested in their careers. They're not interested in just this one individual case. They can lose or win it. They're going to get their money anyway. So they don't have a problem losing the case and preserving their license. So that was Willie Boston, who obviously was convicted. But what's that?
No match.
Attorney Joe Mack.
Yeah. Well, I will mention it. So what happened was after that case, there's some other cases, and I just want you to know. Besides Bosket, I'm sure that in terms of your law license, John Eastman, anybody familiar with him? Eastman? He was the architect of January 6th. Anybody familiar with that name, Eastman? He was the Trump's person who was the architect of January 6th, and he was the one that put together the plan so there would not be a peaceful transition of power from Trump to Biden. And he was the one who organized the behind the scenes, organized what happened later that day. He organized that, and not only did he organize that, but he already had the plan to go into a state of emergency, and then in turn, after the state of emergency, to redo the election and in turn give Donald Trump an opportunity to stay in power. So, but my point is, with them knowing this about Eastman, he still has his license. Now, Giuliani has lost his license, but Eastman still has his license. And here, Alton Maddox, just for defending clients, there came a time where he was in a position to lose his license. And yet, in this particular situation, you have a person who actually organized a coup against America, and he still has the license. So in any event, I'm saying that just to juxtapose how white supremacy works. So Alton went on, and you know, in the Marla Hanson trial, if you remember that case, he defended the two brothers who did whatever they did, allegedly slashing Marla Hanson. She was on the witness stand, and Alton grilled her. When he grilled her, people like Ed Koch was outraged and said that he should lose his license. Doug Hyken, who was an assembly person, went to the grievance committee and said, I need y'all to investigate Alton Maddox and his professional behavior in that case. In other words, how dare he grill a white woman who was the victim of a crime? So that was egregious to them. Here, Alton Maddox has clients to defend and trying to make sure that they can beat it or get the least time possible. And they're worried about how dare you offend this white woman who was, based on her face, she was scarred.
She hired her. You need help with the lecture?
Was that?
You need help with the lecture?
With the what?
You need help with the lecture?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Seems like
So-
you're getting help.
Okay. So, what had happened, like I said, you had an elected official actually go, Doug Hyken, one of the leaders of the Jewish community, went to the grievance committee and asked them to investigate. So, long before the Tawana Brawley matter and Reverend Sharpton in the 67 count, long before that, he was already being monitored by the, grievance committee. They were looking for something. So now, you have Michael Stewart. Anybody remember that case? Anybody remember? The so-called graffiti artist. So-called. You remember what happened? They say that he was drawing on city property. The 6 police officers that beat him down, they said he had been writing on the wall. Now, I don't know whether he did that, but he wasn't doing it at that time. He might have been a graffiti artist. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing illegal about being a graffiti artist. But at that time, he walked his girlfriend, who was white, to the train station and kissed her goodbye. Those police officers took offense to a black man kissing a white woman. So when he kissed her goodbye and she went into the turnstile and kept going, they followed him and moved up on him and beat him down. Anybody remember that? We should remember that because it happened in our lifetime. And we should make note of things like that. The Michael Stewart, anybody remember anything else about the Michael Stewart case? There's some things that you should know. Anybody?
I'm sort of getting that one.
Do you?
Is he the same one where you drove a car? No, that's
No. Well, the distinguishing thing about this case is that they beat him so bad, his head was so traumatized, the blood clots was all in his eyes, that Elliot Gross, The chief medical examiner at that time was Elliot Gross. Elliot Gross plucked the eyes out of Michael Stewart's head, soaked them in solution till all the blood clots were gone, and put them back in his head. Now, some of y'all are looking at me like I just grew another head.
No,
I'm telling you what had happened. I'm telling you for the record that he was beaten so severely by those 6 cops that to cover it up, Elliot Gross, the chief medical examiner, took his eyeballs out of his head, soaked them in a solution, put the eyeballs back in his head once it was clear. I know y'all looking at me funny, but I'm just telling you what happened.
I remember the details.
So, and this was done by a chief medical examiner. This is not by Bobo the Clown. Chief medical examiner. Dr. Elliot Gross knew better than that. He had to be fired after that. Who exposed that? Alton Maddox. Alton Maddox. Now, I could ask Dr. Lewis, who's here, what was that soaking process, but I kind of know it from Alton Maddox already, so I won't even have to trouble him while he's eating this soup to ask him why Dr. Gross did it. I know why Dr. Gross did it. It was a cover-up. How do you cover it up? You play your role. In all these various conspiracies and things that go down scandals, all you do is play your role. And Elliot Groves' role was to examine the body, but in that process, he got to make it look like, well, it wasn't all that bad. There was force used, but it wasn't excessive. It was excessive because when you got 6 cops beating on somebody, everybody want to get theirs. Everybody has to get theirs. You can't have 3 do the work and 3 guys. Look, everybody gonna get theirs, so everything is even Steve. When they were finished, he was a bloody mess. So they had to clean it up, and Elliot Gross said, I'm gonna look out for these guys. Took his eyeballs out of his head, soaked them in solution, put them back in his head. How Alton Maddox did that one, I don't know. I don't know how he found that. But I guess looking at the rest of his cranium and looking at his eyes, and I'm pretty sure that he had somebody like Dr. Lewis or somebody look at it with him, and they realized there's no way you could be beaten that bad, all swollen up, and your eyes are clear. It's just no way. So when they did an examination, they found out that the eyes, it had that solution in it that you soak in. So Elliot Gross had to be fired, they were exposed, but the cops were acquitted. So, you do the best you can, but Elliot Gross had to be taken out, and that was done because it was exposed by Alton Maddox Jr. So, when we're looking at Alton, we're not just looking at a lawyer, we're looking at the consummate professional, a person who's going to go above and beyond the call of duty and go after these guys. And if you notice, his whole career, he went after power people and tried to get them locked up. Elliot Gross should have been locked up, not just fired, pardon me. He should have been locked up for doing something like that. He should have been arrested and put in jail. So that's one of the things that Alton did. Now, does anybody remember Michael Griffin? See, the thing is, some of y'all participated in some of these things, whether directly or indirectly. It's okay. You just don't remember the specifics of that case. But in this one, a mob Where was the mom from?
Beach.
Howard Beach. Queens, Howard Beach. They beat him down, killed him, and one of the young men who did it was the son of an NYPD retired detective. So when he went home, and I guess he told his father what happened. His father, they changed cars. They changed cars because he drove the car that tracked Michael Griffin down and ran over him on the highway when they were trying to get away. So they changed cars and went back, and so he reported it that he was there, but they used a different car. You know, the detective knew how to cover it up. So in any event, they were, they were prosecuted, but they wasn't prosecuted by Santucci because Alton demanded and was able to get a special prosecutor. Everybody's clear on what a special prosecutor is? Everybody knows? Okay. So he was able to get, Alton is the only attorney, black or white, that ever was able to get 2 special prosecutors. And that's a record. People don't realize it, but that's a record to get 2 special prosecutors because you got grounds and you got evidence to prove that this prosecutor can't prosecute the case because he'll be going against his own community to prosecute the case. Now, Alton was able to expose that Santucci met with organized crime figures and spent the whole night at a restaurant with them. Now, how Alton Maddox did that, I don't know. Because I always would say, Alton Maddox, you got some hound dog in you. Because he could find out these things. So he was not only a guy that read laws, he was a guy that would put in the legwork and find out if you mention a certain person, he's going to find out about them. He's going to do his homework. And I'll just get ahead of myself in the, just to say that proof of that is when people wanted him to defend Tawana Brawley. I'm going to get ahead of myself. I'll come back to Tawana Brawley later. But when Sonny Carson was asking Alton to take the case, Alton was like, I don't know, my plate is full at this time. And so Sonny Carson, Booba Deacon, is telling him, you got to take the case. You have to take it. And Alton said, look, I'll get back to you, but in the meantime, I think he said, just organize a march and demonstration up there. He said, you do that, and we'll take it from there. So that's what they did. In the meantime, nobody knew that Alton Maddox was up there doing a serious investigation. And he was able to come back, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'll get back to it. He was able to know who the individuals that Tawana Brawley named were. And that was done in advance because nobody even knew that Alton accepted the case already. And he already did the homework. But that just shows you how exceptional he is and how he personalized every case he was involved in. It was like a war, like I said. The military science was in full effect. And the personal part is because you were like a family member. Everybody that he defended, it was like he was defending a family member. He took it all personal. He did not just say, oh, this is just another case, it's just another client. He took it personal. So if we look at why whether it was saying choo-choo, who he got removed, got a special prosecutor in that case, because he wanted justice, he was fighting for justice. Or in the case, does anybody remember Andre Nichols? Anybody remember that case? Because I'm not going to be asking you about all these cases, but I'm glad I mentioned a few of them because I want to bring it back to your remembrance, because you might vaguely remember something about the case or you might not. Andre Nichols was accused of killing a Catholic priest. Now, in New York City, that's no lightweight thing. You know the power that the Catholic Church holds sway to in New York. Whether it's the Italians or the Irish, the Catholic Church is strong. It actually, I dare say, it reigns supreme. Because no other religion can get away with the cases that they've committed.
Yes.
Over the last century, and I'm not even going back into the 1800s, just their history in the 1900s alone. And I'm not even talking about what they do in South and Central America, the Caribbean, all of these places. Just their history here in New York City.
Great Andre.
It was crazy. So in any event, when Andre Nichols actually did kill the priest, so it's not like I'm making up something in retrospect. He killed him. So Alton didn't have to fight on, did he kill him or did he not kill him? Alton fought on the grounds was, this was justified. This boy had been getting raped since he was a little boy by this Catholic priest. Since he was a little boy. The Andre Nichols did not enjoy being raped. Sometimes, when that happens at an early age, that becomes your lifestyle. Unfortunately. Whether it's a family member or a friend, once you start down that road and it happens, you might accept it, you might like it. In any event, Andre Nichols, he didn't like it and rejected it. But this was an authority figure in his life, so he could not even say a bad word about the priest to his parents. Couldn't say anything. And you might say it as an adult, or you can talk to your parents. That's easy for you to say now. But there are plenty of grown men, black, Irish, Italian, who will tell you they was raped by their priest, but they didn't tell their parents. That's the level of authority they were taught to have for their priests. So in this particular case, Alton came with so much information on this priest. He didn't just deal with what he did to Andre Nichols. He had so much information that the Catholic Archdiocese wrote him a letter after the case, after he got Andre Nichols acquitted. They wrote him a letter thanking him for the sensitivity that he showed in surgically just doing what it took, but when I had all this information, but just used this much. Just this much. But he had this, but surgically just used this enough that they said, you win. We're not going to fight you. But please, don't expose this. We're ruined. We're finished if you do this. And that's the work. That's the work ethic that Alton Maddox had. So we're not talking about just another lawyer that had skills, went to good schools, knew the information. We're talking about somebody who was a real warrior, someone who's going to fight that good fight. That's Andre Nichols. And that's amazing to get a letter after the fact from the very same organization you accused of raping little boys. And they tell you, thank you for being so gingerly with us. Thank you for, for you just doing what it took to free your client. And that's Alton Maddox. What other attorney can you can't even imagine getting off after killing a Catholic priest. You can't imagine that, but he was able to do that. I'm gonna go a little faster. I'm not gonna do too many more cases. I'm gonna get to some other things I want to get to. Then I want to give time for Q&A. I'm sure everybody here remembers Yusef Hall. That wasn't too long ago where people forgot. And certainly in that case, where did it occur? Anybody remember?
Bensonhurst.
Bensonhurst. Now, in the Central Park case, what did David Dinkins refer to those young men as?
Urban terrorists.
What?
Urban terrorists.
He said urban terrorists, but he used a term that we probably wasn't familiar with in here. He said they were wilding. He called it wilding. Wilding out, wilding. Do you remember him saying that in Bensonhurst? Did he refer to the attackers in Bensonhurst? Did he say that they were wilding?
No.
How about in Howard Beach? Did he say that they were wilding in Howard Beach?
No.
How about Avenue X, Sheepshead Bay, when Willie Church was killed, the transit worker? Did David Dinkins say that they were wilding when these white mobs attacked him? Do you recall David Dinkins ever telling the white community that you were urban terrorists, you were wilding? Then why did he reserve that for us? We put him in office. As a matter of fact, it was the Yusef Hawkins case that galvanized the city. Do you realize that? David Dinkins was mayor because of Yusef Hawkins' death. People were so outraged then and tired of Ed Koch that put David Dinkins over the top. It was Ed Koch who told David Dinkins to run against him. He wanted an opponent to raise money, and elected officials, they raise money and they keep some money for themselves. He needed an opponent. So he used the city clerk and said, run against me. He said, it's okay, run against me. Ed Koch told Dinkins to run against him. Did y'all know that? No. Okay. Now, black people wanted somebody to run against Koch. David Dinkins ran and was trailing. It was, I guess at that time, somewhat of a disaster. But what happened? Yusef Hawkins. Now black folks from all over. Targeted, galvanized on this upcoming election. Koch was shocked. Koch had already won 3 elections. Going for a 4th. This thing, organized people, got David Dinkins over the top. Y'all understand that? Just do some research on it. Anything I said tonight, just do some research and get back to me. And if you have some Q&A, we can do that too. Here now or whenever. So the Yusef Hawkins comment we all agree when he said it was wilding and urban terrorists and all that, that's for black people. He wouldn't dare say that about white people. These are the types that we have in order. Now, Tawana Brawley. How many people here think that Tawana Brawley was actually raped in the South Carolina and kidnapped? Put your hands up. It's okay if you don't put your hands up. It's okay if you don't. Does anybody think that it was a hoax? Put your hands up if you think it was a hoax. Because nobody in that courtroom ever said it was a hoax. That was Robert Abrams, the Attorney General's office, that wrote this fictitious report. Not one person in the courtroom, none of the jurors said it was a hoax. If she could name half of the characters on a license plate and could describe the car it was in, which was verified by the postman. Somebody looking at me like, what? A postman verified. A postman verified he saw a little girl being abducted right there on a regular street. Got pulled into a vehicle. They flashed badges. See up there, district attorneys carry badges. Now Patterson, who was a state police officer, Pagonis, district attorney, flashed the badge. And Harry Chris, a cop, flashed the badge. So what does a little girl do when they see badges flashed and say, come here? What do? They walk over there to the car, right? There's nothing unusual. It's no mystery. If a little girl is walking by and you do this and say, come here, you're going to walk over there to the car, right? She walked over to the car. She got abducted. 15 years old. Very, very beautiful.
Athletic.
I'm just telling you for the record. If you remember Tawana Brawley at 15, now look, that's 30-something years ago. I don't know how Tawana Brawley looks. Last time we seen her, she was looking good, but let me tell you something. 15 years old, look, just look at the pictures. They saw something that they wanted. I'm telling you what, please. And she was abducted. Now, Alton Maddox later found out that in the grand jury, the postman could not say that in the courtroom. You know why? You know you're supposed to only answer the questions that are asked. Is that right? Any legal minds in there? You only respond to the questions that are asked. So if you saw an abduction and the prosecution says to you, did the Yankees win last night? You know what you have to say?
No.
Yes or no?
Just a lie.
They said, last night, was it raining or was it clear? You say it rained last night. And then they say, do you know this to be the Brawley address, such and such and such and such? Have you delivered mail there before? Yes, I have. Well, how many times? I've done that route for years. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day. And you walk out of the courtroom. This man had the information that would have buried him. So Alton Maddox meets him in the bathroom and says, how things go? He said, no, they went fine. He said, the guy says to Alton Maddox, why didn't they ask me about the little girl? And he says, did they ask you about her? He said, no. They asked me about the address, they asked me some other questions, and said, thank you very much. You're done. So he couldn't testify, he saw it. Now, now the people that don't know, that's Klan country up there. Mm-hmm. You know that man transferred halfway across the country? You know he had a federal job, he's a postman. So you can it actually go anywhere you want. If you want to transfer to North Carolina, South Carolina, he went somewhere in the Midwest, Iowa, Montana. He went somewhere way in the sticks. Got away from him. So he was never able to say, look, I saw a 15-year-old girl on such and such a date in the afternoon coming from a bus, saw her dumped in plain sight. Now that's the people who think that she made it up. That's just for the people who think Tawana Brawley made it up. And for her to be gone for 3 days and to come back home, and as the newspapers and various media outlets said, she stayed out and wanted to avoid a beating. So she took off all her clothes, got into a garbage bin, in a bag, but in a garbage bin,
With feces.
scribbled feces and KKK all over her chest,
And her back.
cut her hair, had all that and that filth from these beasts. Got what's that disease? Chlamydia.
Yeah.
Am I saying it right, guy?
Yes.
Chlamydia. Got chlamydia from these beasts, and later it was found out who had it. Who knows who had it? Pagonis himself. He had it. And his wife found out in court why they didn't do nothing for weeks. His wife found out the hard way why he ain't do nothing with her for weeks and weeks. Because he was being treated for chlamydia. She found it out when it was said in the courtroom, her mouth dropped. And we were up there for the defamation trial. You should have seen her. We knew just about the time how long are they going to stay together, when is the divorce coming.
The paperwork started the day after.
So here you had a half dozen grown white men claiming that they were doing Christmas shopping a month before Christmas. Now you know the average man does his shopping the Christmas Eve. If he's going to do it, it's Christmas Eve. There ain't no black man ever, or white man, a month in advance buy something for the family. Just don't do it. You got other things. First of all, you got to deal with Thanksgiving and all that first.
And all of them are the same guy?
All of them got in a van, a big SUV, got in there, went to another state, shopping, and stayed away for days. And that was because they was Christmas shopping. Now, how many men you know Christmas shop in November for something that's in December, the end of December? It just don't happen. So, oh man, look. Well, I know I'm going on a few tangents, but I just wanted to prove the point. Just in case it's somebody in here or somebody on Zoom that thinks Tawana Brawley is a host. Now, the person who thinks it's a host, since I know it ain't nobody in here, even if you do think it, you ain't gonna admit it now, because you know how you would look. So if somebody on Zoom, if you thought that before, ask yourself, when do you go shopping for the wife or the kids? In December or November? I know what it is. It's December, damn it. It's not in November. So in any event, that was Tawana Brawley and Alton being the bloodhound that it is, without Sonny giving him no name. Sonny ain't giving no information. Sonny said, man, you got to do this case. That's all he gave him, a boobadee. He didn't give him no information. The girl was raped. She's 15 years old. Her name is Tawana Brawley. We need you to do this case. Nobody knew. Alton was up there doing the homework. All right? He did the homework, so by the time it came time to take care of business, he already knew who did it. And believe me, that Pagoda's family is part of organized crime. Now, you can't open a store, a cleaners, a laundromat, a bar, without greasing palms up there. His family is connected. So you can't get nothing done. And some people up there don't like that. So they're going to tell you some unofficial things off the books. And say, look, if you call me in a courtroom, I'm going to deny everything I'm telling you. But these guys are gangsters. They did this, they did that. That's how Alton found this stuff out. And nobody down here even knew Alton was doing the investigation. You know? And you can't tell most organizations because damn near every organization you can imagine is already on the snitch list. Alton saw the snitch list. Why is he going to tell these organizations? Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And they're going to report that back to the police intelligence unit. They're going to tell them what's going on. So Alton didn't tell nobody. He just knew it. And that's why I always said, man, Alton, you got some bloodhound in you. You know, you got that bloodhound in you, man, because you can smell and sniff things out long before it happens. Now, I'm going to get into some things, and I'm glad tonight that Dr. Lewis is with us. Give him a hand. Give him a hand. Because I'm going to share some things. As a matter of fact, I'm going to stop doing these cases. I'm going to leave these cases alone. I'll just mention one more case, and then I'm going to go into another area. You know that the Tawana Brawley case and Reverend Sharpton, his case, cost Alton Maddox his license. Now, Alton Maddox license was always hanging in the balance. Every case he did. Now, in case you don't know, a black attorney is allowed one case, one big high-profile case. Then after that, you go back into a cubbyhole. It doesn't matter whether you made $1 million off the case, $8 million like those attorneys who came in after the fact in the Central Park 7 case. It's not 5, it's 7. You know, these Negro attorneys that came in later, they were just there to count the money. They didn't put in the effort to work. You know, that every lawyer that was on that case got suspended or disbarred. Did you know that? Did you know everybody in the Central Park 7 case? Everybody. Every black attorney was suspended or disbarred. Did they tell you that in that movie, the Central Park 5?
No.
Did they tell you that?
No.
That's why I tell you that movie was garbage. It didn't even mention Alton Maddox. You go through that whole movie. Did it tell you that Michael Briscoe is the only one that walked out the front door? What? Yeah, somebody walked out the front door. Michael Briscoe, one of the people they accused of raping Patricia Neal. That's her name. One. Did they tell you that Alton Maddox's client walked out the front door? They understood clearly that Alton Maddox wanted all 7 of them. I mean, actually, all 7 of them. He wanted all 7. If you want to get technical, it was 12 or 13. I got all their names. I didn't bring it with me tonight, but I got all the names. I might have it here, but you don't need the names right now. But all the names who they originally gathered, and then you don't need the 40 or 50 guys that each precinct up there in Harlem were just pulling in people, just pulling them in, whether they were in Central Park that night or not, it didn't matter. They were just pulling in people. And they were abusing, obviously, people's constitutional rights and all of that. But suffice it to say that Alton Maddox was trying to get all, not some, all of the people involved that was being charged. But they either had white attorneys or they had black attorneys. Robert Burns, Colin Moore, and Robert Burns, Colin Moore.
Mason. Mason?
No, Mason
How
wasn't.
about Roger Wareham and,
Roger
and
Wareham.
Michael Warren?
Water.
No, it wasn't Michael Warren. And it certainly wasn't Roger Herring, because
Roger Wareham?
he don't really do cases. Anytime he has a case, he passes it on to a white attorney, and will be in the background. Yeah, I wanted to get that in. So, we know the attorneys that do the real work, or the attorneys that do what Crump do, put in the lawsuit. They don't do no work, they just write the lawsuits for the money later. But defending clients, that's Alton Maddox, a real trial attorney. The other guys, please.
Roger Wareham does most of the international
Right.
No.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
He ain't no trial attorney.
Zimbabwe and everything else.
All right.
Right.
That's what Alton.
So, in any event, I don't know why, because I know they can name all the guys who were in that. It'll come back to me. I
David
don't.
Chrysler is one.
Who?
David Chrysler.
No. I normally have all that, but in any event, what happened was
Right here.
name the names. Name the names.
Name the name.
Name the names.
David Chrysler is one of.
Just say the names. Just say the names. So in any event, do you have the names? Okay, I'll move on.
Linda Fitzgerald.
So in any event, Joe Mack was suspended. I don't know why I had worded it out. Joe Mack, he was suspended. Colin Moore was disbarred, and who was the other one? Burns, disbarred.
Haley?
Alton Maddox, initially suspended indefinitely, which is no such thing. When you're suspended for a year or less, or you're disbarred for six or seven or less. But what they did is that they gave Alton Maddox an indefinite suspension, but they didn't do it for the case. They was upset that his client walked out the front door, so they got him in the middle of defending Sharpton, and I'll end on that. That Sharpton had a 67-count indictment, which y'all might remember. It was actually a part of a 70-count case, but 67 counts had to be done first, and then the other 3 later. Do you know that Alton beat back 67 counts that Sharpton had that would have put Sharpton in jail for 300 to 400 years at that time? Alton didn't call one witness. You got that? Yeah, I just want y'all to understand. Because I remember the irritated Jeannie once said to me, Michael, is Alton really that good? He said, because the things I hear about him are impossible. So Jeannie said, Mike, man, was Alton Maddox really that good? I said, brother, he was. He said, yeah, but how did he do it? I said, brother, I'm just telling you, he did it. How he did it, you have to get it from him. He shared a lot of this stuff with me, but he said, man, he's really that good. That's how good he was. So, 67 counts. Now, the great William Augustus Jones' brother's an attorney, Clayton Jones. Clayton Jones told us they got Sharpton. He said Sharpton guilty as sin. He said the only one that can get it all is Alton Maddox. That's what Clayton said. Clayton was right. Alton beat back 67 counts without calling one witness. Everybody that testified against Sharpton, he undressed them. Everybody walked out of there naked because Alton beat the hell out of them. And Sharpton walked with the 67 count indictment. Walked. Now those other 3 counts, I think Michael Hardy plea bargained. It was the whole package was a 70 count indictment. But they had to do 67 first. Those were all the serious charges. Well, Alton Maddox destroyed. So I said that to say that when Jeannie asked me, was Alton really that good? I said, look, man, I'm not trying to hype it, but it was all that. I said to Washington Post, and you know, and this is Jeannie's neck of the woods, the Washington Post. The Washington Post said he's Mr. Civil Rights.
Yeah.
Said he the best that did it, you know, the best. And you know, at that time, we had JC around. I'm not talking about Jesus Christ. Who am I talking about?
Cotton.
Johnny Cotton. Washington Post said Alton was the best that ever did it. He said he wins what they described as long shot cases. He wins cases that are impossible to win. He finds a way to win. So, Sharpton got off lucky with a 67 count indictment. That's why I always said that, you know, Sharpton, who went for the money, was a millionaire, should have hit Alton on. And he did that for free. I said that way back then, that he should have hit him on. Now, this was the last case in 1990. Now, during that trial, they took Alton's license. Do you know what the judge said when they took his license? The judge said, Attorney Maddox, as far as I'm concerned, you're going to do this case. You're going to finish this case in my courtroom. Because the judge's mind was blown by the legal ability of Alton Maddox. He said, no. You putting it on him. He said, I'm not going to bar you from this courtroom. You can finish the case. And let Alton Maddox finish the case in Sharpton Ward. That's how good he was. So they told him, they pulled him in the back room. Like I said, they called him in the back room a few times. They called Alton in the back room and said to Alton Maddox, look, man, we want Sharpton. This is at the time when he was playing like he was black. You know, but he's a, well, I'll leave that alone.
He is what he is.
You know, so they wanted him at that time, and they told Alton, they said, look, Alton, it's you or him. If you persist in the road you're going down, we're going to take your license. And Alton Maddox said, well, you know, you do what you got to do, because I'm going to do what I got to do. They said, Alton, everybody sometimes, you got to throw fish back. You catch a fish, you catch it, you reel it in, you got to throw it back in the water. In other words, you got to feed the wolves. We bark. You got to feed us. Alton Maddox said, any fish I catch, I eat it. He said, I don't throw fish back in the water, I eat it. And they said, okay, we told you. So they took his license during the trial. Took his license. The judge said, I don't care who took what from you. You're going to finish this case. because he had seen this brilliance and said, I want to see him get through 67 counts and beat all 67. The judge was like, I want to see this. I want to see it happen. Well, he saw it happen in plain sight. Alton beat back all them charges. Sharpton walked out. Now Alton Maddox in 1990 did not have a license. So just imagine you at the height of your profession. Height of your profession. Beating everything in front of you. And they tell you you can't practice law anymore. It's crushing. Up to that point, he hadn't made no money. If they took Crump's license tomorrow, which they would never do because he's their creation. If they took Crump's license tomorrow, he would retire a multi-millionaire. Probably 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollars. Alton Maddox was in retirement now without an income and no money. Had a wife that worked 2 jobs. Well, sometimes 3. Yeah, sometimes 3, but 2 full-time jobs. One in Teaneck, and the other one in McAdams. That was Alton Maddox's own income. Now, let me just say for the record that there were a few occasions where money was raised, and Dr. McIntosh is brilliant at raising money. He can get you to give up some of your liquor money, your cigarette money, and maybe some of your trick money. You know, Mac is pretty good at that. So Mac, I seen him do it, raise a nice amount of money for Alton Maddox. And so, you know, I've seen him do that brilliantly. And so I'm saying that to say that Alton was without a license, no visible income. And imagine what that does to your mind. You know, if you've been training your whole life to be the best lawyer that you can possibly be, and now you're told you can't practice anymore. And you're just suspended because they don't have any charges. So they told him, and I was there with him and a few other people, we were right there on Court Street, downtown Brooklyn. And we got the word from Charlie Randall, who said that, Alton, we can go downtown and you can get your license back, but this is what you have to do. And I'm listening. I'm there, this group, we got our little cipher. It's about 5 or 6 of us, standing around, and Dr. William Augustus Jones, Reverend Jones, was there in the circle. And they told Alton that you have to go into the courtroom with a Jewish attorney. These specifically. You have to go into the courtroom with a Jewish attorney. You have to apologize and eat humble pie. And you have to tell them you're sorry and that you will never do anything again that they find injurious. So don't bash them, beat them up, or nothing like that. And Alton Maddox asked the question everybody would ask, anyone would ask. What am I apologizing for? That's the seminal question. You want me to apologize. Why am I apologizing? What did I do? So a part of intelligence, or I should say a part of counterintelligence, is to know what you're going to do in advance. The worst thing you could be is predictable. You don't want to be predictable because the enemy, FBI will eat you up because they got a profile on you. And the profile on you already tells them everything they know they need to know. They know if you happily married. They know if you're not happily married. They know if you believe in same sex or do you gravitate toward the opposite sex. They know how many times a day you use the restroom. They know if you like women with these kind of physical characteristics, whether it's the buttocks, the breasts, the lips. They know all that stuff because they know what to send to you. It's not happenstance. They know what to send to you when they want you to violate your marriage or whatever. They know who to send you, but they've done their homework. They're serious about their homework. So they had a profile on Alton. And an elected official or a governmental body like the Grievance Committee and all of them, they'll ask the local special agent here, give me a profile on Alton Maddox. They gave him a profile, and so they asked things that were untenable. They asked him the very things that he would never do. I'm standing there, and I heard them say, you have to come to the court with a Jewish lawyer. I'm looking at them like, Alton would never come into a courtroom with a Jewish lawyer. If he come into the courtroom, he's gonna have a black attorney. Because that's what he about. Now, you gotta apologize. Apologize to who? And what am I apologizing for? I gotta eat humble pie, and I gotta tell them, reassure, well, boss, I'll never do that again, boss. I won't challenge anymore. When you pull me in the back room and tell me such and such and such and such, I'm gonna do it. Alton would never do that. Most attorneys would do that. I'm just telling you what I know. I'm not telling you what I think. I'm telling you what I know. I know what most doctors would do. I know what law enforcement will do. I know what people in social the movement, social justice movement, what they'll do, and they all gonna sell out when they butt is on the line. I knew Alton Maddox said, there's no way in the world he's gonna do that. When they said that, I'm looking at Alton's face. And I seen the look on his face, I said, oh boy, Alton ain't getting his license back. Said there's no way in the world. Because they asked him things they know he wouldn't do. So when that was said, I just shook my head and I'm like, man, we can forget about that. You're gonna have to go about getting your license another way, because that's not gonna happen. So in any event, let me just say something about the funeral, and I'll just, oh man, it's almost 10 o'clock. We'll do Q&A. I just want to say a couple of things real quick about the funeral. Alton Maddox had a funeral at the church that Adam Clayton Powell Sr. built, which was downtown at one time, and it moved to 138th Street. And certainly he was a legend in his own right. Adam Clayton Powell Jr., Congressman, Reverend Powell, was a legend in his own right, fought the good fight. His father fought the good fight. I can't say that about Butts, but I'll say that Butts opened up his church for Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark. He was basically taken back the way he saw those funerals go, the cultural aspect. He was looking at it with amazement. I'll give it to Butts. He looked at it with amazement. Now, the thing was, that funeral, people spoke there at that funeral who never meant well for Alton Maddox. If you were there, in other words, I know who organized it. I won't even say it. That'll be your homework assignment. You figure out who organized it. From the outset, let me say that nobody from the United African Movement spoke. No one, I'll say this again because I want everybody to understand. No one from the United African Movement spoke. No one. All these names, some big names and others spoke. Ask any of them, when was the last time they spoke to Alton Maddox? Ask them, when was the last time they saw Alton Maddox? When did you eat with him? When did y'all hang out and just chop it up? They can't tell you. It's been years and years and years. Some of them ain't seen Alton years or been in touch with them in all them years. But they were there, up there acting like they were buddies. They were not buddies with Alton. There were people up there lying, saying that Alton had dementia. It was like a rotating door of people saying that. It was a lie. Alton did not have dementia. Now, I know people, when they get 50, when they get 60, when they get 70, they have what I'll just call a senior moment. They will forget some short-term memory, maybe some long-term stuff that they don't remember as well. But out of nowhere, everybody was saying Alton had dementia. I spoke to Alton on a regular basis. Myself, Ray, and Dr. Lewis. Dr. Lewis examined the medicine that he was taking. Dr. Lewis talked with doctors, various doctors, when we were there together. Ray did, I did. Now, let me backtrack for a minute and say that I remember 10 years ago, Alton was doing community cop with us on a regular basis. I remember one time he came in to do community cop with us, and I noticed right away, Alton wasn't sharp. Normally, sharp as a razor. Mine like a steel trap. We asked Alton questions, and he having problems answering. I recognized that in a few times with a question, when I saw him, kind of struggle a little bit, I stepped in, boom, 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 took care of that. Right when it was over, I said, Alton, man. I said, what's up, B? And he's like, no, my brother Mike, everything's okay. I said, yo, man, what happened? Something's wrong. He told me that he went to a political function in New Jersey. Now, I'm telling you what I know, and certain things I'm just not going to say tonight. But, Ray, just let me know when I'm too late, when I'm going too far. And because I do want to get to some Q&A. Okay.
Maybe one or two questions.
Okay, so in any event, he went to a political event and somebody slipped something in his drink. And so when he's leaving there, he's walking out, and he started feeling tired, walked out, fell right on his face. So, and he had a chip too. And I knew something was wrong. And so I knew, Alton, you gotta watch your back, man. You can't sit down with everybody and just eat dinner or drink something. If you gotta drink a beverage, whatever it is, if you walk away to the bathroom, you take that drink with you. You don't let it leave your sight. So in any event, that happened, and I was waiting outside with Alton to get a cab. He was going home. And I walked back in. I walked back inside with the guys who we just did the show. I walked back outside again, and Alton was still there waiting for a cab. And I knew then, I said, wait a minute. what am I doing? Letting him get in the cab, and he's a little messed up. He's a little foggy. I said, Alton, man, let me take you home. And so he said, no, Brother Mike. He said, no, Brother Mike, I'm good. I want to get in the cab. I said, Brother Alton, I didn't ask you. I said, get in the car. You know? And he said, okay, all right. He got in the car. So I took him home and I dropped him off at home. And I said, brother, just watch yourself. And he came through that one. And I saw that again when we started, meeting with him and checking on him and everything. So I would just say that there were medications prescribed for him that should not have been prescribed for him. And Dr. Lewis knows that. He was fine. I would test his memory, ask him about these very cases that I mentioned tonight. And he would just laugh and tell you all the inside things that he did on these cases. And so Ray would work him out. Push-ups, sit-ups, different exercises, Ray would do with him. And Alton was getting stronger and stronger, getting better. And Dr. Lewis, if I'm saying too much, just give me a sign. There was a person who was preventing this, who had a problem. I'm gonna keep looking at you every so often, Doc. You can tell me. Just let it go. Didn't want him to be healthy. I could see what was happening. He had people around him who definitely was not doing him any good. I know that for a fact. And we even had a guy, one time we went up there, and it was a UAM member who told us, as a matter of fact, we took his parking spot. He was leaving and we was coming in. If you remember that, Ray. And he told us, Alton's brother. He said, brother Mike, he said, Alton's bugged out. I said, what do you mean he's bugged out? Because we had just saw him a few days ago, and he said, oh man, Alton's bugging. Alton won't eat, he won't talk, he ain't saying nothing to nobody. He's just sitting there like he's a la-la.
Bagel with cream cheese.
And so we said, really? He said he ain't eating no food, he won't eat his dinner, he won't eat his breakfast, he ain't doing nothing. And he ain't talking to nobody. We went up there, handed Alton some food. Alton went to town on the food. The guy said to us later, I don't know what y'all did. The doctor said, what y'all do? The nurse said, what y'all do? And I just said, Doc, he's around friends. That's all. I said he's around friends. He knows all of us. He trusts us. Now, what's that telling you? So, I'm just saying that what I'll do, that if I do a part 2, I'll be a little more specific. I didn't know the time. I didn't know that it was this late, so I'll open up the Q&A. But I'm just saying for the record, the exercises we had him doing, the way we had him walking and working him out was it was a road to success. The foods that Dr. Lewis had recommended that he start taking, and he started doing this, the powders, the vitamins, the natural nutrition from certain fruits and vegetables. We was doing what we was doing, and it was working. I'll say that for the record. And so we was getting blocked at every twist and turn. But we knew we were doing, and I live by saying that it was a nurse who we were talking to and we developed a pretty good relationship with. She was not from this country. I won't be any more specific than that. She was not from this country. And she said, I could tell y'all love Alton. She said, get him out of here. They're gonna kill him. Get him out of here. See, I don't want to be specific because I can tell you who she was. But then they might fire her. They might be listening to this and they're reporting. So I'll just say that, you know, since so many nurses is not from this country, I don't think that I'm identifying her by saying she's not from here. She's from someplace else. And that's what I'll just say that for the record. She said, if you love him, get him out of here. She said, it's only a matter of time. They're going to kill him. She told us that. And she was serious. And she said, please don't say anything, you'll get me fired. So I don't even know, maybe I should have said what I just said. But they don't know. But, so, you know, there was a lot of things going on, and maybe I'll be more open about that. The time is late. So I'll just open up for some Q&A right now.
Okay, first question from the Zoom audience. Anybody from the Zoom audience have a question? Anybody from the Zoom audience have a question? Going once?
Yes. You mentioned Mike, I'll have to say you must have part two. You have to continue, you know, what you were saying. I don't want to hold it up. Somebody else to ask a question because I'm abreast of certain things, so I want to someone else.
I'm being told by Sister Keisha to do a part two.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, done.
And what Sister Keisha says, do, it will get done. Okay, thank you, Sister Keisha, Thorough Black Talk. Question from the floor. Anybody from the floor question?
Short questions and shorter comments.
The Chief Reed did an excellent investigative report about Tawana Brawley. If we still got access to that, anybody that's still in doubt that this what she spoke for Tawana talking about was the truth. And they just
Right. Well, Patrice Lee, for those who might not know, this sister is as brilliant as the day is long. Where's she from? Barbados? Trinidad, pardon me. She's from Trinidad. The sister used to be the editor for the City Sun, and also a host on WLIB. Incredible intelligence, sharp, a warrior, scholar warrior. Patrice Lee did a whole lot, and we should always be grateful and thankful for her contributions. And there's no doubt about it. City Sun was a must-read when Patrice Lee was there.
Many me.
You got to speak up.
Youngest person that Alton had to defend.
You got to
Do you
speak up.
recall the youngest person Alton Maddox had to defend?
Maybe Basket?
6-year-old boy that was used as a mule, and they wanted to put him in jail. And Alton said, hell no, you will go on with me first. But you're not going to put him for pedophiles to have access to him.
Okay.
There's a story around Alton defending some Caucasian person, and everybody was like up in the blow about this.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with it.
It was about some
I'm not going to say yes or no. I'm not familiar with that at all.
Yeah. That may be
Okay.
something you should have been defending.
He asked, was there a Caucasian person that people want to uproar about Alton defending? I don't recall that at all.
They were in the uproar about him defending Sharpton.
Well, Brother Ray, everybody was putting this stuff out about Alton, and me and Mike took him to the restaurant on Broadway, 231st. Alton gets out the car. Get your hands off me. walks up the stairs, didn't need no help. He didn't need nothing. So I don't know, and ordered the food and was sharp as a tack. Every case that Michael Graves asked him about, Alton would give us the history when we went up there to see him. Every case, he still knew people. So I don't know about him losing his mind because he was sharp as a tack.
Well, there were prescriptions that would make the strongest person unstable, that they were giving him these psychotropic drugs that they was giving him. And I'll just say for the record, I asked him, Sister Keisha, I'm going to do a part 2, and you're absolutely right. I'm going to need to do the part 2. I asked the doctor, this was the head person in charge of his situation. I told the doctor that, why are you giving them these 3 psychotropic medications? He couldn't give me a reason, so he said, Alton has Parkinson's. I said, first of all, what does Parkinson's have to do with psychotropic medications? And he said, well, have you noticed Alton's hand shake? That his hand shakes sometimes? I said, so do mine. I said, I'm not taking psychotropic medication. I said, sometimes I get a twitch somewhere and it goes away. I said, I could be working out and then I'll feel something in my wrists or my elbows or whatever. I said, here's what. I said, if something happened to Alton Maddox, I said, you're going to have to explain these medications. We've already looked at it. Guess what he did? He took them all. Because he didn't want anything coming back at him. I did that twice while he was up there, because he went to a couple of different hospitals and a couple of different, rehab places. So, that happened twice, and I know the person who was putting him on those things, who was strongly suggesting that he take those things. And I'll deal with that the next time.
Any other question?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it also great that they ordered them to pay and he never paid?
Yeah, there were several cases. I don't know which one specifically you're talking about, but which one? Well, he won, and he won in the defamation suit. If you look at it closely, Alton won. Sharpton has always got somebody else to pay his stuff for him. He's always had people looking out for him, doing things. And you got to remember that the person they was out to derail was Alton Maddox. It wasn't C. Vernon Mason, who also was suspended. It wasn't Sharpton, who the FBI had already had dead to rights, had him walking around with a wire, doing X, Y, and Z. It was Alton Maddox was the target all along, because they realized that the leader of UAN, which was the largest organization, he was the leader and the point person for, at that time, Black New Yorkers, and was having an influence all over the country. And so they had to go after him. And after a certain period of time, the way they worked their magic, he was white magic, not black magic. The way they worked it, he became persona non grata in no time. And if you were too close to Alton, you didn't get on the radio no more. You can no longer get on BLS, RL, Kiss FM, and all that stuff. So they put a wall around Alton and did a real job on it, so that he couldn't express his ideas. He couldn't use the media to organize at that time. So they did a full court press on him, and but he won. But he won up there in the defamation suit. He won. And is there any other questions? Because I'll stop there. Anybody else real quick? All right, Ray, we'll stop right here and we'll pick it up in 2 weeks, and I'll get more involved. But I'll just say for the record that most of the people that they had speak at the funeral are not worth 2 cents. The majority of the people that spoke there, they did not have that relationship with Alton. They might have knew him or knew of him. And the sister who said that he had dementia didn't know what she was talking about. She was outright lying. She said he had dementia, and that Sharpton and him had brokered a deal, and that Sharpton was helping him, which was a lie. Obviously, Sharpton had her to say that, but it was an outright lie. And so I'll if there's no more questions.
You know, so you saying Sharpton never did give her any financial support whatsoever?
No.
That's a
He
shame.
said that Sharpton had come back
It
on
was,
the news.
look, Sharpton, not only was he not there, because it's a lie out there saying Sharpton was there for 5 minutes. He was not there.
Not to the
And he did not help out at all. Next time I'll be more specific, and I'll give some names.
Yeah,
I'll give
the brother
some.
did say something which was that I heard Sharpton said something indirectly said the thing possibly might have been English, which is a lie.
What?
Okay, well, I'll respond to that real quick, and I'll end it on this. Sharpton told Edward Koch that this was Alton Maddox doing. It wasn't him. It wasn't C. Vernon Mason. It was a manifestation of Alton Maddox. He said that he insinuated that the Tawana Brawley matter was a hoax concocted by Alton Maddox, and Ed Koch said, if you will say that publicly, I will stand with you, and we can do a press conference together where you will say that. Sharpton thought about it, even though he wanted to be in Ed Koch's good graces. He understood that he would be no longer acceptable to the black community if he went on record. So he thought about it and did not show up at the press conference. But a snake that's a snake is always a snake. And so he understood that he could not keep his credibility and say that Tawana Brawley matter was a hoax, even though he knew it wasn't a hoax and that it really happened. He would have done it, but he would have been at variance at that time directly with Alton Maddox, and that would not have been fruitful. So he let it go. And disappointed Edward I. Koch in the process.
Well, I want to make a comment about working with Alton in the last year and a half to 2 years in reference to, and I'll just say right now, I'll narrow it down to reference to his mental status in terms of taking medication. I cannot make any judgment about whether or not the medication that Alton was taking months before he died, what type of psych medicine it was, whether it was worth it or not. There came a time about a year and a half that I, Brother Graves and Ray was asked by Alton and the individual that Alton was living with to come by to check in. Myself, Graves and Ray about a year and a half, we went up to his apartment, assessed it. It's about a little over a year and a half ago. They called me because I functioned with Alton on some previous occasions
Right.
medically, and he had a little hypertension, so I interacted with him. And so when we went up about a year and a half ago, we assessed the situation and we made some recommendations. We worked on some diets and a few other things. At that point, that first meeting a year and a half ago, and some subsequent meetings, myself, Ray, and Graves, upon the request of Alton, we would come by, made a diet, and Graves and Ray put Alton on an exercise regimen, and we tested him. Now I'm telling you what we did, and I'm not going to make a criticism or critique of what somebody else did to interact.
Right.
We interacted with him, and they exercised him, and we would come by periodically, a year and a half ago, and meet with Alton. I couldn't come by all of the time
Right.
because of my schedule, but Ray and Grace would go by, visit, help him with his exercise regimen, take him to different locations to take care of his business.
Right.
This was at a time when Alton was living with an individual.
Well, yeah.
I'm living with the individual. That particular individual that Alton was living with became sick. And Alton, there was a period of 6 or 7 months, we're talking about a year ago, where Alton lived independently for 6 to 7 months, a year and a half, about a year ago, independent of that person he was living with, living alone in his apartment, no medication, 7 to 8 months, totally independent, could do everything, no psych medicine. Brother Graves and Brother Ray would come, drive him in the system. In other words, he was independent living with myself, these two brothers especially, interacting with him.
Independent of that.
Independently living with no medications, walk, do everything. There came a time when that individual who he was living with returned. And then there was circumstances where he was put on these medications. So I'm telling you from my observation what happened is that a year ago, a little over a year, he was functionally totally independent by himself. When that individual came back to stay with him, that's at the time when he had the psych medicine. From that psych medicine, then for certain circumstances, going to the nursing home, and then other circumstances came where he would go to the clinic, the hospital, and back to the nursing home. It is at that period that he ran into some health problems. And then there was a circumstances where I was told he visited a hospital, came back from the hospital, went to the nursing home, and he died. So there's circumstances. So we've seen him, I've seen him, myself, with others, when he was living independently before the psych medicine, the nursing home, and other factors.
So you're saying other factors led to the deterioration?
All I'm saying is I'm not making a medical observation. I'm telling you what I saw, and I was there a year and a half ago with Alton, living independently with these brothers, assisting him. When the circumstance changed about 6 months ago, where he was being given psych medicine, then to the nursing home, then to the hospital visit and back, then he died. So there's a circumstances when he was living independently, and then subsequent to that, there are circumstances where his living circumstances changed. He was put on psych medicine. Then for some reason, he was put into a nursing home, and from there he ran down.
And we'll end it there, like I said, There was a nurse that told us, if you love him, get him out of here. She pleaded with us. We said, we trying. She said, look, I'm telling you. She said, I could lose my job, but I'm telling you, get him out of here. There's nothing wrong with him. He'll be okay if you get him out of here. And I'll stop right there.
Okay, thank you, Zoom audience. Thank you for coming to the Brooklyn William Baker Jr. History Club. Thank you very much. There will be a part 2.
Dr. Lewis,
Huh?
I know because, not you, Ollie McLean told me.
If without, we not on record, right?
Hold up.
There's no record.
Hold up.
No, don't take it.
Take it off, wait for the tape.
Huh?
Hold up.
Wait till he cut it off.
Okay, Zoom audience, thank you very much. We're going to end it.
There's no recording, right?
No, everything is all.
We saw him, myself, Ray, and Greg. We were with him a year and a half.